I'm Ben Werner. I lead product marketing at Privado.ai. And like V just said, we're very excited to have you here today to discuss our upcoming AI agents for privacy. This represents a major product launch for us, and we think this is going to revolutionize how privacy teams do privacy assessments, uh, do build data maps, identify risks, among other things. So, yeah, before we get started, I just want to do a few housekeeping items. This webinar will be recorded. We will share the recording afterwards with the slides from today's presentation. Please ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll be happy to stop and answer your questions. You can submit them to the Q&A. And yeah, I think we can get started. So I'll pass it off to our co-founder and CEO, V. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. Hey, everyone. Super excited to present our new product updates. My name is Vaibhav Antil. I also go by V. I'm based out of New York in US, and I'm the founder and CEO of Privado.ai. Privado helps modernize privacy compliance department, privacy compliance requirements using the power of agents, advanced scanners, and automation and orchestration. Prior to starting Privado, in my previous avatar, I was working in product management. And I was working in product management, and I actually chanced upon the GDPR compliance problem back in 2018, which led to us starting Privado back in 2020. Our first product was privacy code scanning, which was to help privacy and engineering teams get together or bridge the gap on how privacy thinks and how engineers think. Over time, we have added quite a few things to our platform, including scanning websites, scanning mobile apps, finding consent issues. And this release today marks a new shift to our product platform where we are going to add a lot more agents to empower privacy teams. So that's a little bit about me. I love to listen to classic rock when I'm not working on Privado and, see some restaurants in my neighborhood in New York. Thanks, Ben. Perfect. Awesome. So, yeah, a quick background of like how we've seen like privacy evolving. I think privacy is a unique department because as privacy professionals, we don't create any risk in the enterprise, but all the risk, all the governance falls on our shoulder. And kind of what I've seen is like so far, what we've seen as a solutions in the marketplace so far, all the legacy players have been very much focused on questionnaires as the starting point of doing any investigation, building your maps, finding risk, or it requires you to trust your fellow team members. So it could be because you've set up your CMP, someone in your marketing team set it up, but it's kind of set and forget, leading to a lot of fines. So that's where the reality of today's privacy deployments and solutions are. But when we look at the business, right, Ben, if you go to the next slide or the next version of the slide, if you look at technology today, what I've been really intrigued by seeing is the adoption of AI. So if you look at product and engineering, which is kind of where Privado started, uh, estimates go from anywhere from 50% or 40 to 50% to as high as 90% in a company where engineers and software developers are writing code using LLMs and Gen AI tools. So these are tools like Copilot, Windsurf, Cursor, ChatGPT. All of these LLMs are writing code. So we've gone from a place where everyone came out of the pandemic and said everything is going to be digitized to like that entire culture of writing more and more code to a place where now AI is writing almost 90% of code. But if you look at privacy, we still have our only defense to that is questionnaires, asking people around. Now, when the code is written by AI and that has been accelerated, how does privacy react to it? Who do they even ask that what was written if no human is writing it, right? So that's kind of like, I would say the biggest change is the technology of today is moving really, really fast. It's enabling teams to do much, much more with very small teams. And then privacy has to react to it. That's the main thing. So that was on engineering when you were developing your own software. A second big shift I've seen is every department in the enterprise is getting their own agents and co-pilots. Marketing has its own agent, sales team have their own agent. Even in sales, you might have some like a agent which writes ads, agents which create videos. More and more pilots are opening up, more and more third-party tools are coming up, and all of the responsibility of third-party privacy risk and AI is now on privacy team. So overall, if we kind of look at the last 4 or 5 years, there has been a lot of change, but especially in the last 12 months, there has been change where real AI use cases have been unlocked in enterprises, be it for writing your own software using LLMs or buying third-party tools using pilots and deployments in terms of buying co-pilots and AI agents. Now, all of this as a company brings in a lot of risk for you, which means you might have done a data map with a vendor and they didn't have the AI capability. Same as Privado, you might have purchased Privado. We didn't have a web auditor. We didn't have all these AI agents at some point of time. And now they do, which means your data map is inaccurate. You don't know until you actually go back and ask them like what has changed. Second is all this new code which is being written means all of the software you might have assessed using interviews at one point of time and represented in your privacy policy is now stale. It doesn't reflect what is happening. And then finally, this leads to a lot of privacy violations, right? So we're seeing the first big level of enforcement in US on user-facing products, websites and mobile apps where a lot of marketing teams are deploying pixels, changing cookies, and privacy teams, since they don't have a scalable governance solution for that, they're getting fined either through litigation or through regulators. That's happening. I do anticipate the same will start to happen across the board. And there is no other way for privacy to fight back until they have their own agents. So that's where Privado as a company is really motivated to go, is like, how can we help privacy teams to do more and more with less and less, which is kind of the default anyways, because privacy teams are small, we all know that, and our responsibilities have been growing. So we just want to introduce agents for you all so you can actually utilize that. If you go to the next slide, and this is kind of how we will touch on a few things today, and then I'll hand it over to Ben as well and answer the question which is on the chat box in terms of how do we conceptualize this and what all we're going to do. So if you look at a company, there is data setting or data collection, sharing, process, storage happens through multiple places. It could happen through your own software that you've built. So that's the code. That's where Privado's code scanning comes in. Then it might happen on your websites and mobile apps. This is where you might be adding more pixels, more SDKs. So that's our dynamic scanning solution. You might have SaaS applications, right? So you might have like a Salesforce or a HubSpot or a Snowflake. So that's also something that Privado can now start to scan. And finally, where agents really, really shine is unstructured documentation across the company. In your business, by the time a thing is started, there has been a lot of documentation that is done. If someone is building a new feature, someone has written a product requirement document, someone has written an architecture diagram. All of that can be used by our agent to actually automate your assessment, build your maps, find risks, automate all the time your business respondents are doing in filling that assessment. So all of us can actually spend time in the real place, which is reducing risk. And then, kind of get to a place where everything is one click button driven. So I'm going to take a pause and answer a question. So yeah, so that's a great question, Gabber, about data does not necessarily rely or necessarily touch code always. So depending on your company, if you're building software, you might have certain parts of data which is being collected, shared, and stored by your own built software. So that's something where our code scanning comes in. If you might have CRM tools like Salesforce, HubSpot, that's where our SaaS scanning solution comes in, where you can actually integrate using APIs and we will scan them. And then there might be some tools which cannot be scanned, and all we have is documentation, basically from the vendor or their own DPAs. That's where we can scan that to build the map. So the way I think about data mapping is some things will be mature, where there is precise answer about hey, can we even scan this, which would be your code, SaaS application, even databases, user-facing product. Some things there won't be maturity because the vendor doesn't have APIs. That's where what we do is we will go web search, look at the vendor, read all the marketing material, read all the documentation to get that information for you. So depending on the maturity, we might have different answers. Thanks for asking that question, Gabriel. Awesome. So I think there's one more question. In case of documentation, is there a possibility to scan Arena where documentation is stored and then get use? Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So we'll get to that in a second as well, Angel. But thanks for asking that question. So if I have to rephrase the question is there a possibility to just connect to the source where all this documentation sits and then automate the map, and then finally send information in tools like OneTrust or update assessments in OneTrust. So the answer is yes, all of this is possible. You can begin by uploading documents manually, but then you can go ahead and connect to Confluence or Asana, Jira, Google Drives of the world for us to get the source of data. We will run the scan, build a map, and we do have an integration with OneTrust to send this data there. However, you can also, if you don't have OneTrust or if you want to move away from those tools, you can use Privado now with this release end to end for complete mapping and assessment solutions. Okay, there's another question, and then I'll hand it over to you, Ben, which is about, is the approach extensible? Which means, can we add custom sources for the agent, build workflows, and things like that? Yes, Gilbert, so that's where we are headed. So right now we have like some workflows coming out of the product automatically. We have a full product line for our product called orchestration and automation, which is building all these integrations and enabling you almost to build like a drag and drop type workflow where you can decide what happens in an assessment. In privacy, we do understand triaging is a big thing. So it could be as simple as, we will let you connect your procurement tool. If something sets in a new proposal gets added there, that can open up an assessment in Privado automatically. So all of that will be possible. And within this workflow, there'll be agents who can do the triaging for you. So the simplest use case we see, which we have been testing internally in Privado, is the moment any JIRA ticket in Privado hits in progress state, which means an engineer has actually picked working on it, all of those tickets are automatically sent to our agent, which triages it. So there's a triage agent internally for that. It triages it, reads the documentation, and says, okay, these are the ones which have privacy impact, and then automatically, kickstarts a process to start a PI and such. So we have all those functionalities coming into the product very soon. Today, of course, we'll look at broadly what the assessment agent can do, what the contract agent can do. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, V. So before we jump into a live demo of our first privacy agents, I just want to walk through each one of them and just highlight the different capabilities. So overall, our assessment agent is going to enable entire assessments to be populated strictly by uploading documents or connecting to whatever platform is hosting your documentation that is relevant to whatever assessment you're running, PIA, DPIA, RoPA, vendor assessments, and we'll expand this to other assessments as we go. But by uploading these documents that are related to whatever the project is, our agent will extract all the necessary information needed to fill out that assessment. Data elements, third parties, processing activities, purposes, and from there you'll be able to see the evidence that is used by the agent to fill in the report, and you'll see the exact, citation, and you'll be able to review and validate very quickly, reduce a lot of the back and forth, and just really change the entire process from taking months to be able to be done in a matter of hours or just a couple days. So, with both teams being able to see the documentation, the reasoning, and the evidence, it should really reduce the back and forth and any, confusion on, how the answers were provided. Moving on to our contract agent. So the idea here is to eliminate manual contract reviews and build a privacy database of all of your contract information. So by uploading contracts or connecting to your contract lifecycle management system, our agent will extract all the key privacy details, data elements, purposes of processing, obligations. And so with this database of contracts, you'll be able to flag risks in assessments. If there's a third party that does not have a contract, you'll be able to pull in information from this database if there's an assessment related to this third party as well. And then moving on to our web auditor agent. So this is an extension of our existing web auditor product. And with this agent, we'll be able to run much more complex user journeys throughout a website to be able to take any sort of action, just like a user would, whether it's filling out a form, buying something, signing up for something. And from there, these agents will be able to automate these tests so you can get a much more comprehensive view of your privacy risks to make sure that there's nothing leaking, that there's no cookies or sensitive data being shared when it should not be. So with that being said, I will pass it off to Vaibhav for the live demo of these agents.
Thanks, Ben. I will share my screen. Ben wants to stop sharing. Perfect. Thanks for that. Great. Ben, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I know we talked about a bunch of agents, and we have a few Privado customers here as well. So you'll see with our new release note coming up, a lot of things have changed. But some of the things, what we've done is we've used the same capabilities to enhance some of our current scanning capabilities. So one of the classic one is website scanning. Uh, this especially has become really, really important. If you operate in US, especially to some extent in Europe as well, because the UK ICO runs or is doing certain audits, and there's the French regulator as well. But especially if you're in US, there's an active global privacy control sweep happening right now with the California or the California regulators and a few more. I think it was Connecticut and maybe Colorado, if I remember correctly. So a bunch of AGs are coming together to run these joint sweeps, making sure your website is respecting global privacy control. So essentially, what has changed, and you'll start to see this in the product is we've always had capabilities to run scan on any website dynamically. So most vendors in the space would require you to say, hey, we can only scan if your website uses OneTrust or if it uses Sketch as a CMP or TrustArc as a CMP or Didomi as a CMP. Privado has no such restriction from the get-go, and we've used the same technology to extend our scanning. So what we really do is to begin with, once we run a scan on a website, we are able to automatically take screenshots and the underlying code of that web page to figure out where are all the relevant things. So when we take a screenshot of a website when we land, the first thing we are really interested to kind of see is like, hey, on this website, do we see a cookie banner, right? So this is the simplest example of we send a screenshot, say, okay, do we have a cookie banner? Yes, we have a banner. Tell us all the buttons on this page, right? So we're able to say, okay, we have 3 buttons, accept all cookie settings, only essential, and then we're able to automatically map. So accept is accept, only essential is reject, cookie settings is cookie settings, which allows us to do something which is we can scan any website with any cookie banner of their own to actually figure this out. Now, what we've done with our web agent is allowing you to even give such use cases, and we will actually automatically figure out the right forms and do the same. So this was one example. We do something similar for finding out if you have any dark patterns on your page, if button text has changed. So for example, if we would find a color contrast problem on your website, we would actually call it out and say like, hey, there is a color contrast between different buttons, and that's like a problem, right? In this case, there is none, which is fine because it's exactly the same color. But if it was, then we would call it out as an issue. Uh, so what our web agent really is doing is it's doing intelligent crawling based on the kind of issues litigators or regulators are finding. It starts with super simple things on finding dark patterns, finding like link gaps, so certain links that have to be on your website and aren't there. It will find all of that. So for example, if accessibility is missing, privacy policy is missing, and across the websites, right? So you might be wording them differently on different websites, and we will pick it up automatically. So that's kind of where we have this capability of figuring out what's happening on the website automatically. And with this release, what we've really extended into is like doing intelligent crawling. So when we open a website, we identify if there is a form, our agent is able to automatically fill that and then see if the data gets leaked to any third party. So for example, on this website, we know there are certain data types that are being collected, including phone number, email address. Now, this is an automatic scan. We are not really basically instructing them to do such things. The agent is able to automatically say, hey, we know there is a form, let's fill the form and see if data gets leaked. So all of this and all of these insights, all of these common privacy issues, the agent is able to automatically think, reason, and build the use cases for. So that's kind of how the web agent works. Of course, beyond the web agent, if you're here on the webinar, some things are like as simple as saying like, in US, there is a GPC sweep happening. Am I compliant? So it will still help you with that. So for example, this dummy website called Privacy Dark Patterns has a GPC issue. When you scan it from California, it has a lot of ad pixels firing on the page, and that's a problem. For example, there is a Spotify pixel which is firing, even if the user is saying opt me out using the global privacy control. And of course, you can see the checks like what we did. You can see the script responsible, so GTM. So what's happening is the website loads tag manager, that loads the Spotify pixel, and that leads to privacy issues, right? So that's kind of what it is telling you, like, hey, go to your tag manager and fix things. Don't let it don't let this compliance issue caught you off guard and led to a fine or a enforcement or a litigation, essentially. So the web agent will help you do basic things like this, like testing for global privacy control, testing for different scenarios. For example, from Europe, it will automatically reject, accept, take no action. All of that it will do without you having to do anything. So it really reduces the effort of you having someone who's active privacy analyst or someone from marketing to define what to test. It does that job for you automatically. So that's number one. Some interesting other things that it would start to do also is like it will also validate if you have a CMP. And then another thing it validates it is the firing sequence of your cookie banner or a cookie script rather. So the most common issue we see in our customers is their cookie banner is firing late, and that leads to a lot of problem on their website. So for example, let's look at Clarity. This is Bing or a Microsoft Invest or Microsoft Ads Pixel. And this was identified again by our web agent, which it says like, hey, we looked at this page. This is loading at number 8, which is 4461 millisecond before the actual CMP script, which is this OneTrust cookie script, and that which is loading at number 11. Now, whatever you can do, you can configure OneTrust however you want. If you have a script loading before OneTrust CMP script, it will not respect your user's consent choices. So this is another example how our web auditor and the corresponding agents will help you find actual issues, which you can then, with one click, send to JIRA, and then, ask your teams to fix. So it's as simple as that. So that was the starting point, which was a very simple web agent. Now we're going to get into a little bit of assessment mode and run a few assessments, and then we'll go from there. So let me do a quick switch of the workspace, quick refresh, and then we'll go from there. Okay, awesome. So for the demo, I have a few types of documents that we can look into. And so we'll start from some example, and then, we'll see what all exists. So to begin with, I'm going to start with calling out a simple use case saying customer lifecycle management is a process I want to assess. I'm going to make myself the owner of this process. And then my goal will be to do a privacy assessment, like a simple privacy assessment on it. So to do that, I'm going to go to the assessment tab. I'm going to click on send assessment, send an assessment, assign it to myself again, and then begin the agentic process. Awesome. Perfect. So what you can see is the moment this assessment launches, it's giving you like a quick glance of like, hey, seems like a regular assessment, right? It has some questions, answers, but it also tells you like, hey, this has an AI assist functionality, which means all you can do is you can upload documents and then we will do the rest for you. So we're going to start with that, and then we look at the results as they populate. So let's start with a super simple use case of uploading a document. I'm going to upload a data flow diagram, and then we'll go from there. So Ben, just for my insight, do you only see the browser, or did you see the document I uploaded as well?
We did not see the document you uploaded.
Okay, perfect. I'll get that added. So I've added one document. While this is loading, I'm just going to show what I actually put in the AI. So we know. Let's do Google Chrome. Okay, awesome. So can you see the document now? Right?
Yes, it's vertical, but yes, I can see it's a data diagram.
Perfect. Yeah. So I remember back in 2020 when I was studying for CIPP or CIPM rather, the first thing I was trying to research on what's an ideal data flow diagram. And, if you search for GDPR data flow diagram, I pretty much think like this is what you get, this customer data flow diagram. This is from December 2017. It's basically a sample data flow diagram. It also looks a little vertical, but it's basically you might have certain things like this documented already in your company in a flowchart. The problem is you can't use that flowchart in regulatory reporting or making sense out of that in a proper dashboard like ours. What we can do is, like, if you had something like this, we can just extract all of this and send it back to use it back in our assessment tool. So let's see what's happening there. It's been scanning, it's making, getting the evidences, finalizing the document. So takes a minute or two, and then you will see things starting to fill up. Awesome. Yeah, so all it took was that, and then everything started to fill up. So you will start to see there are certain patterns here. So first of all, I already had a name of the processing activity that I was assessing. So it did not actually fill it. And it is asking you to say, hey, do you accept or do you want to discard it? I think it came up with a good name, so I'm going to just use that. And then the moment I did that, it actually told me this was added by the agent, which makes sense. The second question, however, is already added. It was empty. We did not have a description, which means the agent already filled the question. So your business team can just read the description, and then if they want to make edits, they can, or they can just accept it. So it just says the initiative documents the flow of customer data. Data is collected from customer via website and stored in database. Data is then used by internal departments, including services, marketing, etc. And then for everything, you will see there is a reason. So it's saying the description is synthesized from the visual data flow, which shows the path. So it's telling you how, it's giving you the diagram link, it's giving you all that context. Now let's look at some more interesting questions. So let's look at purposes, like why did it say these three are the main purpose? So let's look at direct marketing. So it tells us that the diagram explicitly shows a marketing function that uses customer data and integrates with MailChimp, a service primarily used for direct marketing activities like email campaigns. So this is where, unstructured information, where things like purposes were not mentioned in the document, our agent is able to reason through it and say, okay, these are the actual purposes, and fill it for you. And of course, you can make any edits, you can add your own purpose, like all the things that you are used to while you're running an assessment is all open, right? That's all open, that's all available. Let's say. So that's another thing. So then the next question is, which person, team, or groups own this initiative? You will see this is empty. There's no answer found, which means, and you can see there was no response, because in our document, there was nothing clearly saying which person is going to own this initiative. So this is empty. Then the next question is, whose data are we collecting, sharing, processing? So it came up with customer. It tells you why. I mean, in the diagram, it was an explicit one. Region, so it pre-filled that. Data elements, it was able to extract email, phone, and address. Again, you can add any custom data, any data element of your choice here. So all the manual inputs are all available, but we do the job for you anyway, so you don't have to do that manual part. So where we are seeing this become super helpful is when you start sending assessments for any new initiative. A lot of time, business teams have already documented something in their process, right? That's when they actually are mature enough to tell and come and tell to privacy, like, hey, we're going to launch this next week or the week after next. Can you help us with this? And then it's too late, but how do you do it even at that point of time? This is a good way because it will save the business team's time and you don't have to chase it. It will pre-fill everything for you and you can still always approve it so it doesn't get submitted back. Okay, next, let's look at what's the source of data that came in. Where's the personal data source? So it's a website name. All the assets came in, all the storage assets came in, including support drive. So we can look at why it said that. It shows the file icon, it shows the drive name. Then all the third parties it's telling, like, you have AWS, Zero Trend, Sim, and MailChimp. It's also giving you these flags saying as new, which means these third parties do not exist in our workspace today. These are net new vendors that are being created for the first time. So you can actually review if we've made like a mistake, you can actually edit them, delete them, things like that. And then finally, who has access to data? So it's like customer marketing accounts, customer services, all these teams have access. Once you've reviewed it, all you need to do is hit submit, and then your assessment will get submitted. It will open risk, it will update your data map, it will finish your process. So this is the simplest example of an assessment, which was done on a diagram that I found through the internet. And if I go back in Privado now, you will see the processing activity would have already been updated to customer data flow. It has all the linked inventory, so linked assets, linked third parties, linked data elements is there. So all the data we found there, it already started filling in the details. So this will start to generate your RoPA. It will open up risks or issues if there are any, and you will reach a place where you have to do less and less manual work. So I think there was a question on the chat, which I'm happy to answer. So the question really is, if the question asks for policy, can it attach? Yeah, so there can be question-based justification as well, and that will update, Nitin. That's possible too. And that could actually pre-fill or act as a validator for certain questions. So that makes sense. So and essentially that could help us do things like, based on the policies, answer the policy question automatically. So instead of you asking like, hey, do you have policy for A, and then asking justification, they can just upload all the docs and we will just match the policy there and saying, yeah, there is, and here's the proof for that. So that's possible too. So this is a super simple process. As I said, we have like some more example. I'm going to take a bigger example of a recent assessment done by, I think it was Surf, if I remember, on a LLM system that was built in Europe. So I'm going to do a quick one again. We'll let it run and we'll move to the assessment for or the contract agent really, and then happy to answer any question. So super simple. There are actually multiple ways you can ask the agent to start the work, but this is the simplest I've seen. Like, this is a very recognizable flow. As I said, you can always add an approval, you can add a due day, you can add reminders on Slack. All of that is possible. So let's do that. So what I'm going to give to this assessment as a different type of document. So you see, this was basically a data flow diagram, not a lot of information, but was able to work through things. This time I'm going to give it something which is bigger than that. So let me upload it and then open it up, and then we'll look at a few contracts and some use cases from there. So let me upload that. It'll take a second. Okay. All right, so this is kind of what I'm going to give to the agent. So this is a DPI done on Gen AI for Surf. So for example, if you are one of the companies who's utilizing, I don't know, Microsoft Copilot for education, and you want to reuse the Surf DPI, then you can just upload that, and we'll just get everything. The only reason why I picked this is very exhaustive. It has a lot of information, so you'll be able to see how much information we can pull in from. This is a 140-page document, right? So we can pull all of the relevant insights from there. So if you have done past DPIs which sits in Word doc or Excel sheets or PDF, you can use this functionality to import it and create a structured data map out of it as well. So I think this will take a little bit time, a couple of minutes. While that's happening, let's look at a new other part of the business, which is the contracts. So this is super exciting, and with this, we will also be launching the CLM integrations and integration into tools like Box and Drive, wherever you are uploading contracts. What this functionality really do is, like, as we start to get these DPAs in, we will scan them and discover third party. So for example, in this case, we're saying, hey, we think this DPA is of a third party called HubSpot. Do you want to create it or link it? So it gives you some controls. But wherever that has already happened, it also makes it really powerful, because it's basically parsing the entire DPA and getting us information that we need for different reports. So we could need it for a report like RoPA reports. We could need it to find any data sharing issues. We could need it to just show compliance to the regulators that we have good contractual controls. What you can also do with our policies is you can also give in your standard controls that you want to make part of the DPA, and then we will do the deviation, saying, okay, this contract doesn't match your DPA, or this DPA doesn't have your specific contract control. So all those kind of use cases are possible too. But the most simplest one is like, hey, we extracted the approved data subjects, which are part of this DPA, approved data categories, with the data hosting, the purposes, third-party processors, security measures, retention, things like that. All of the things that sit in a DPA, we're able to extract, and this will power your RoPA report. So we'll have a look at that in a second too. While that's happening, okay, still the document is processing, given it's a large document, we can look at the use cases that come out of a contract scan. So I'll focus on two simple use cases. We're going to start with looking at the same third-party intercom that we looked at. So what's happening in Privado, if you remember the data mapping slide, we've run a couple of scans. So we've run our website scan, we've run our code scan, we've run the DPA scan, contract scan. All of that has filled up this third party page. So first of all, it's telling you where all did we find intercom. So we found it on three of our websites. We found it on a code repository, this Pisha Mountain, which is nothing but our front end or SaaS dashboard, which you are seeing today. And then we found it in a contract. So it's showing you all of that. Next, it tells you what all data are you sharing with Intercom through all of these products of yours, your website, through your code, maybe even manually in some sense. Once all of this is done, what the contract scanning functionality does it, if we would find a data type which is here, which is, let's say, if you find a data element here, which is not part of your contract, we will start to create issues for you. We will say, hey, based on the data sharing that we see and the data sharing which is approved in your contract, it doesn't match and there is a mismatch, and we'll open a privacy issue for you to remediate as well. So that's kind of a big use case on risk reduction, preventing excessive data sharing, actually proving and validating to your regulators that you have good quality compliance controls or contractual controls with your vendors. I think that's the biggest third-party controls beyond third-party risk management is having contracts and DPAs, and this actually helps you mature that as well. So that was a good example. And then how we use it internally is for different things. So for example, we want to create a RoPA for subprocessors. So what we've been able to do is like scan all the DPAs for all the subprocessors we use, which are listed somewhere on our website as well and on product pages. Then for each of them, this entire information is automatically filled. So name of the third party, description, the category, the purposes, data subject, recipient type, category, hosting, security measures linked to DPA. So it's basically taking our a ROPA which was not that accurate, not that complete, to thing which is living. And as your DPAs are being rescanned, as your vendors are updating their DPAs, we can update this automatically. So it becomes really powerful. It saves a bunch of time for all of us. And even for our sales team, it's very easy for them to share some of these things as part of security assessment and such. It's downloadable. You can do all of that. So that was one use case of the contract agent and how you can use it. Okay, this is still going on. Okay, it was complete. So in this case, what we can see is there's a bunch of information that came in. Again, the first question, actually the answer and my answer matches, which is great. In the second question, it filled up, which is also fine. I think the interesting thing starts to happen in question number 5. So you will see it's discovered a bunch of data subjects automatically, right? And we can see why. So all these data subjects are part of the DPIA done. So we can see researcher, and then it says, hey, it basically explicitly identifies researcher as a category of data subject, right? So yeah, it's super powerful. It gets locations from like jurisdictions which are part of it. It's getting all the data element. It also added health data, which I think I don't know why health data will be part of this DPIA, but let's look at it. I'm also surprised. So it's saying the document explicitly lists data concerning health as type of special category data that may be processed, particularly if the data masking filter is disabled. Okay, yeah, so it does talk about that as a big risk, and hence our agent picked it up. So that makes sense. Source of data, all the assets, all the systems. So there is a proxy, there is AI Hub, there is Presidio, which is a masking tool. These are all the assets that store data. And then finally, all the third parties that are involved. So we know Microsoft is involved, OpenAI, Meta, Mistral, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Bing, Grafana. All these third parties are involved. So if you are also curious, you can just look at the DPIA later, which was done by, I think, by the privacy company. So all these possible vendors are part of this. And all these AI vendors are part of this assessment. So that's actually pretty cool. I'd never looked at this. And again, you can, once you submit it, it will either hit an approval stage if you have that enabled, or update your processing activity, which we can always look at. Yeah, I think this got updated. It has all the inventory, and now you can download it and make it a regulator ready RoPA report as well. So that was the assessment agent. We looked at the contract agent. Another piece where we do use LLMs quite a bit, and that's improving in our next release, is when we look at scanning code repository, we do generate processing activity. What we're extending the same is all of those will start to get checked in here. And then we will link data elements, purposes, data categories, third party. So like a full ready, engineering ready RoPA report as well. So let's look at a couple of examples there. So for that, I'm going to pick accounts as a repository. And then we look at what we have discovered here. And then we can open it up for Q&A towards the end. Okay, awesome. So there's a bunch of information here. This is our account service. The main thing is basically figuring out like what are the main purposes of this service. So it's basically doing two things. It's doing user preference management and MFA management. These are the two processing activities that is linked to this software. Now, this has been a big problem when we look at engineers write code and we have to report regulators on processing activities. So what this is doing is it's converting these complex codes written by your software engineers back into regulator ready processing activities. And with our new release, you'll also be able to manage them better. So you can merge them, edit them, change the description if you want to, and do all of those things. So the two things this one does is user preference management, which means it's saying it involves user to manage user account, including invite, profile update, role management, workspace and identity provider, user preference retrieval, and updates for individual and bulk user. All of this is possible to do in Privado via our settings page. So that's kind of what it interpreted, right? So it took the code, converted it into something that can be shared with anyone in the company. And then the second thing it's saying is the second job of this service, this repository, is MFA recovery management. So it handles the verification, creation, update of recovery codes for user accounts to facilitate MFA processes, right? So in Privado, you can go in, you can enforce MFA, which means you will have to have an authenticator app and generate a code, do all of that. It's saying this is the piece of software that enables it. Now, once you have it, actually, it makes your life very easy because again, we're going from a place where we had to ask people about what data map they have, what processing activity they have, to a place where all of this is done by our agents, which is connected to different sources. And as we keep improving, of course, this is our first release of the agent. We've started to get really good feedback from our customers. We're improving it with literally every week. We are launching and improving it further. And these are some of the big use cases where you can use our agents for simplify and reduce time for your assessments, make them accurate, make your business teams happy, generate RoPAs by scanning contracts and code and third parties directly. And then overall, like for your website, let the AI drive all the use cases, all the types of user simulations that your end user might do, and find rest that you wouldn't know about. And you don't have to be like a web expert or a marketing expert for that. I think that's pretty much it for us on the review or the preview of all the agents that have been launched. Happy to take any questions and utilize the last few minutes to for any Q&A. So there's a Q&A button below. If you have any questions, please feel free to use them and add that. I'm going to pick some of the ones that I also got offline. And yeah, if there's someone who has a question live, please ask. Okay, so I have one question. So the question really is that basically this team has done a bunch of data flow diagrams and they sit in Visio, and would Privado be able to import it? Uh, so yes, basically what you can do is download these data flow diagrams automatically, like from Visio, and just upload back in Privado, and we will generate and build all the inventory assets and all of that. So yeah, it's also pretty interesting. Like if you are moving from a completely manual process to Privado, this will also help you migrate without you manually creating all these entities and then managing that. So thanks for asking that question. All right, I'll wait for if there's any more from the audience. There's another one. Yep, see that. So there's a ability to what could cloud are you yeah, thanks for asking, Gabriel. That was the other question as well. So what kind of models do we use? And then there's another question on data flow diagram. So Gabriel, we use all the foundational models. So we have possibilities to use Gemini from Google, Claude from Anthropic, and then OpenAI. All of them are on the zero data retention mode with Privado. However, our customers can also use their own keys. So you can bring your own keys, which means it will be your deployment of models instead of ours. That's the basic that we use. And yeah, we're primarily using GCP for Gemini, which allows us to enforce zero data retention. Yeah, that's also be possible to customize. So you can select your models, you can select, bring your own keys, all of that is possible. Thanks for asking that question. That was literally the other question as well. Um, so the next question was, does Privado have a tool to generate data flow diagrams? Yes, Pedro. So basically what we are doing essentially is, and there are multiple places that we do generate data flow diagram. One is through code scan, one is through web scan. Then there is a data flow diagram, which is coming up for processing activities. As we start to get all these signals by running these assessment of where's the data collected, where's the data stored, where's the data processed, that will generate into like a nice data flow diagram as well for you. Thanks for asking that question. Awesome. Perfect. Like we are around. If there are any more questions, happy to answer it. Uh, I can talk about like as the other questions are coming, another few exciting things that are coming up. Uh, One piece we feel we have been testing and the agents are performing really well. We haven't made them live is GDPR principle checks. So you have these basic GDPR principles on data minimization, purpose limitation, um, transparency, retention, data quality, things like that. So what we're launching next as part of the agent expansion is where we will take your privacy policy, use that for checks for transparency. We will automatically reason based on the purpose of the processing activity. Are you following the data minimization principle or not? And it's been performing really, really well. So we are excited to launch that as well. So it was another thing. I see there are a bunch of questions. Okay, I think I've answered most of them. Thanks for all the great feedback, everyone. Uh, I think that's it. Those were all the questions. Thanks for staying with us till the end. And these are just the initial agents we've launched. We have quite a few more agents coming up. I'll hand it over to Ben to close out the webinar.
Thanks, V. Yeah, so just wanted to highlight we've got two exciting webinars coming up next month. So our next webinar is October 9th. It's going to be all about SEPA lawsuits and everything privacy leaders should know. So we have a SEPA legal expert, Matthew Pearson, partner at Womble, Bond and Dickinson. Yet he has been involved in a lot of SEPA cases, and there's a lot of questions around, what constitutes a SEPA violation, what happens when you get a SEPA demand letter or with all the different lawsuits happening. So he is the expert, and so we're excited to have him on October 9th, and this also is approved for an IAPP CP credit. And then about a month from today, we'll be doing another product release preview for our AGI agents for data mapping. So as we talked about today, the assessments and the contracts and a lot of other AI agent automation is all feeding into a larger data map that we were pulling from several different sources, software that your company is developing via code, third-party software, and then anything else that you're assessing via documentation or anything else. So we're excited to talk about that next month and provide any other updates. So thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.